this PC game from the Jumpstart series, the fourth grade one called Jumpstart Fourth Grade Haunted Island, before it got redesigned as Sapphire Falls. That scared the shit out of me because that scared me because
Oh no.
um, I was like, oh my gosh, what if they come out of the out of the computer? So
Well,
I let
oh
my
my
imagination
gosh.
run wild.
Oh, I had a crazy imagination as a kid. One thing that really did terrify me, and it was a Beyond Belief thing. It was what started me on Beyond Belief. Was the episode where the Grim Reaper breaks into the guy's house.
Hmm.
And it's like, but the bridge was washed out for 20 years. It couldn't have been a trick or treater. And then it was like the actual Grim Reaper. It's very silly because it's obviously like very campy now.
Hmm.
As a 6 year old, 5 year old, however old I was, like sitting on the living room floor watching it, it
Hmm.
terrified me. And I remember that Halloween, for whatever reason, we had gone into a spirit Halloween, and you know how they have the animatronics? That year it was a Grim Reaper, and I just genuinely didn't want to go into the store. I was like, Mom, no, I'm gonna stay out here. And she's like, you're gonna
Yeah.
be fine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of The Box Cutter, where we take apart an episode of Disney's Out of the Box to see if it still holds up. My name is Daniel, and this month, guess what holiday it is? It's Halloween. Yes, Halloween, celebrated on October 31st, where people go out, dress up, go trick-or-treating, get treats, and enjoy them. And my guest today is content creator, 90s horror camp aficionado and YouTuber, Avery. How are you doing, Avery?
Hi, thank you for that introduction. That made me sound way cooler than I actually am.
I think you're really cool. In all
Thank
honesty,
you. I did a
just
great job.
the whole idea of you talking about the show like Murder She Wrote, and I think your biggest staple, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
it's fun because it's like back then that type of stuff was scary, and now that people
Yeah.
expose their children to movies like It or like The Conjuring and things like that, we look at
Yeah.
that stuff as like child's play.
Yeah, I think it's so fun, especially with things like Beyond Belief, because you know, we didn't have like social media back in the day when we were kids watching TV, so
Hmm.
I didn't know that like everybody in my age group was watching the same things as me and my family.
Hmm.
So like when I started doing Beyond Belief, it was like the second video I ever did, and I was like, nobody's gonna watch this. Nobody remembers this
Yeah.
show, and it's like to this day the most like popular thing, one of the most popular things, because everybody's like, oh my god, I watched this too, and
Hmm.
it's just like I love finding out that we've all had like mutual experiences with media. That's just always fun.
Yeah. I mean, there was a kind of craze of horror in the 90s. Um,
Yeah.
with Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, and then Beyond Belief. I'm the
Yeah.
revamp of the Twilight Zone done by Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's interesting how that was the craze back then, and I think that's kind
Yeah.
of was the thing for a long while in like the 2010s, like the late 2010s, early 2020s. It's like kind of resurging again. Would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, I'm really glad to see it resurging, cuz like horror, especially like horror camp, like that's kind of one of my favorite things, and that's why I think the channel kind of has this like Halloween all the time vibe by
Hmm.
accident. Cuz it's like I always think about R.L. Stein saying that like there's just like a fine line between comedy and horror. And I
Hmm.
think that's why like things like that horror camp genre is just so fun to me, because it's like I don't know, it reminds me of being a kid, but it also just is it's just fun. I don't think you ever
Hmm.
grow out of that.
With regards to going back to Beyond Belief, the one episode I remember the most because it traumatized me so much was the one about the guy who was dating this older woman, this rich older woman, and then he's like having an affair with some younger woman, and then they shoot the
Oh, I
old
remember
rich
this.
lady, and then they try and
Yeah.
put her in the like stuff her in the wall, and then
Yes.
like the nail gun like pins them to the
Yeah.
wall, and then like sprays them with like the drywall. So I was like, what? I was like,
I
I was the biggest scaredy cat as a little kid.
that one still lives rent free in my head, and I haven't covered it yet. I've covered 10 episodes, and
Hmm.
sometimes when I'm like picking a new episode, I'll look past that one and be like, not yet. I'll save that one.
I
And I think
mean,
it's because a part of
it's
me is
freaking
still
scary
terrified of
because
it.
it's like at the look I was like, oh shit, that's that can that really happen? Because fact or fiction, when you're like 5, 4 years old, you don't know what those words mean.
Oh,
So
yeah. And I don't know what the trend is about people trying to put other people in walls, but spoiler alert, that also happened in the Murder She Wrote that we just talked about. I'm like, why is this a thing? This is terrifying.
because a cask of Amontillado popularized that hundreds of years ago.
Fair, fair.
So,
It'll never not be creepy, though.
but my question, what is so enticing about the genre for you?
I don't know. When I started the channel, if you had told me that horror was going to be kind of like a running theme with me, I probably wouldn't. I probably would have been surprised because I've never really thought about how much I really enjoy horror. Um,
Hmm.
I've always liked kind of like the spooky vibes. I'm like one of those people that's like Halloween is the best time of year, and I don't know. I think with especially horror that was made for us as kids, I think that's very interesting. The way that horror kids genre horror makes is so interesting to me because it doesn't have to be overly gory, and sometimes you get the best like horror stories, like those
Hmm.
like campfire horror stories are sometimes scarier than like the body horror like movies of the 2000s that I'm thinking about, you know.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
so, with regards to horror, I was thinking about gaming. Gaming, when it
Yeah.
became very popular back in the 90s, and Nintendo 64, PlayStation, again, a lot of people were capitalizing on horror because it was kind of an emerging genre at the time,
Yeah.
too. That we have this really interesting little, I guess, spark, like this explosive creative spark, horror in all
Yeah.
different forms of media. I think a lot of people would say that the 80s was the height of horror because of the whole slasher movement,
Yeah.
but I feel that it's the 90s that just made the whole genre itself, not just in television and movies, but like in other forms of media, just explode. Because you have Goosebumps, which were books, you have games on like Resident Evil, you have movies like Scream, like all sorts of different medias
Tales from the Crypt.
that
Yeah.
just took the idea at its peak and just made it rise like astronomically.
Yeah, and it's funny. One of the games, and you know this probably. I think everybody who knows me knows this. I'm obsessed with Nancy Drew, and like
Hmm.
Nancy Drew, like the PC games were the one thing that I did really play, and like there are some of those games I'm thinking back to them, and I'm like, whoo, those were scary. Like I'm just thinking about like late like 90s, especially like late 90s, like I don't know, like kids horror really took off in the 90s, and I think that's my
Hmm.
favorite kind of horror. So that's why I love the 90s. And we also had like early in the decade we had Scream, which kind of like poked fun at the whole like slasher genre of the 80s, and so like we
Hmm.
got to kind of pick apart some of those tropes. And yeah, I think we forget how great the 90s were for horror for sure.
Yeah.
But it is funny too because like horror, like I think the fun thing about like horror games or like being scared in an environment where you know like rationally that you're safe is that like you're scared for a second but then you're like it's funny, right?
Hmm.
Especially if you can like watching horror movies with friends is like the best thing ever because it's
Hmm.
funny. Because it's like the jump scare gets you and then then everybody's like laughing, and I think that's really cool. It's funny because you said as a kid you were like everybody's like, oh, as a kid I was scared of this and that, and I'm like, I think I was a really weird kid because I was always like into creepy stuff as a kid. I was more just like adverse to things that like made me cry.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I was one of those kids.
So the episode we're talking about today is Trick or Treat, Halloween
Yes.
episode, which fun fact was one of two episodes for almost 10 years that was the only source of media for Out of the Box. Every other episode besides this episode and the Happy Holiday episode on VHS were considered lost media for
That's
10
fascinating.
years until Disney Plus. Or actually, no, I think more than 10 years because when did Disney Plus come out? 2018, 2019?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, practically 15 years. Um,
Wow.
they were considered lost
See, that's
media until they were uploaded onto Disney Plus. So,
wow. That's fascinating to me because another thing about nostalgic media that I love is that, when you get into this like lost media um, you know, community, you realize that there was so much as kids that we completely took for granted that we
mm-hmm,
just can't find anymore. And
mm-hmm,
it's just like, oh my god, if I could go back in time and tell somebody, like, preserve this, I
mm-hmm.
would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a privilege to have these things. Um,
Yeah.
besides Out of the Box, in the near future, they're going to be uploading Bear in the Big Blue House, which was also
Yes.
recorded in the same studio as Out of the Box and Sesame Street, and another show that I really love, PB&J Otter, because it was made by the same creator
Yes.
as Doug.
Nice.
Well, what would you say is your best costume and your facepalm costume?
My facepalm costume and my. Well, my mom was very good at, like, encouraging us to, like, make unique costumes.
Mm-hmm.
But we always usually ended up doing something similar, like, to the classics, a little ghost or a little witch or a little whatever. But I always do talk about the first time I went trick or treating was probably when I was like 7. Um, and I was the princess, and my grandma had altered this dress that she had so that it would fit tiny little 7-year-old me, and I had my brother because he was like 4. He was the pea, so it was Princess and the Pea. I still have pictures of that because it's basically just me in the princess costume, and then he's in like a big green like I don't know what the word is, like basically just a big like green potato sack type thing that's all like stuffed with, and it was just like really cute. When I look back at those pictures, I just think they're really cute. Face palm. I did go as Alex Russo one year, and nobody knew who I was, and that was so depressing for me because I love Alex Russo.
Alex Russo, for those who don't know, was the main character of Wizards of Waverly Place. It's another Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
For me, my best costume was my mom would make our costumes because we couldn't afford the ones at the catalog or at the store. So she
Yeah.
made my sister Tinkerbell, really cute costume, and for me, she made a Cat in the Hat costume. It was basically like a onesie that was black, but she put like the white spot on it. And then she made the hat. She made a stovetop hat with like the red and white and
Sounds
all that stuff.
cool.
My face
That's
palm
great.
costume, I think I was in middle school and I wanted to be like, I was pretentious. I really liked anime. And so
Aw.
I went through this identity crisis of, oh, I'm not Mexican because everybody else I knew was Mexican and they treated me horribly. So I'd like lie and
Aw.
be like, oh, I'm Asian, I'm Japanese. I mean, don't you see it? so so I'd say asked my mom to make me a cloak, and she made it out of this blue mesh material, which is not the best material to make a cloak out of for a wizard. And then I wore a button-up shirt, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a Japanese wizard." And
Aw.
it
Aw.
was so like, what are you wearing? The more I think about it, because I had like these green cargo shorts on, this white long
Aw.
sleeve button-up shirt, and then this blue like mesh cloak on. And you're like, what are you
That's so
supposed to?
funny.
So
Aw.
I was living my highest delusion at that point. I was in my own delusion. But
You were living your life,
yeah. But Halloween though, I think if we think about the holidays, Halloween is the firstborn child, Thanksgiving the middle child, and Christmas is like like the baby of the family.
The baby that gets all the attention. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, people will,
Yeah.
like, give attention to Halloween, but not as much as Christmas. And hardly anyone, really says, oh, my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. So,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and talk about the episode then. So, the episode starts with Tony in the clubhouse decorating, moving some baskets around. And then he asks if we know what the holiday is, which is Halloween.
Halloween.
And then he goes on to explain what Halloween is. People dressing up and having parades and going trick or treating. And what a jack o' lantern is. Which I find interesting because I feel that most people, even before they start to form memories, are already out trick or treating as a family. So I just find it interesting that they would kind of put that in
Yeah.
there. But then again, I mean, there are those denominations of religion where even though people see the holiday, like recognize it, they don't celebrate it because
Yeah.
they see it as the devil's holiday.
Yeah. I grew up in a very religious part of the country, so a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's the harvest festival," and it's like that's valid if that's how you want to think about it. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, Halloween without scary stuff always just because that was I have memories of like that in my house from like early in my childhood, which is why I didn't like trick or treat until I was like 7 or 8. But like looking back, I'm just like, oh, being scared is my favorite part of Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess whichever way is best for everybody to celebrate it, as long as you're having fun.
Yeah. So while he's getting everything ready, Vivian brings in Christopher, Alicia, and Nick, and they sneak up and scare Tony. Which is surprisingly not the first time that they've done stuff like that, where they sneak up on them and then like scare them.
Tony and Viv should have trust issues at this point.
They should be having PTSD, World War II Vietnam flashbacks.
They're like, these kids, man, can't take it anymore.
So they then show off their costumes. Nick is a cowboy, and Alicia is a witch, and Christopher is a ghost. And I find it,
Yeah.
I don't know, when I just thought about it, I'm like, I've gone as cowboys like maybe 3 times as a child, and the more I think about it, it's like, wait, that's not. I wasn't a cowboy. I was just dressing up fancy because I'm Mexican, and that's literally what we
Oh.
wear to parties. We just dress up and look
Aw.
very cowboyish, like with our
I think
our
that's
hat
awesome.
and our like boots and our pants and our plaid shirts. That's just like how we dress up fancy. So I'm
It's
like,
such a
I wasn't
vibe,
dressing up as a cowboy.
That's so cute. Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, because his costume, it looked like we talked about this a little bit in my video, but it's like all the costumes look great, but his looks the most detail was put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the costumers definitely had the most fun with that one, and we're
Mhm.
like, oh, I can put this on here, and he has like all the tassels, and like it's just so
They
cute.
gave him chaps. They gave
Yes,
him
it's so
tassels
cute.
on the chaps. They studded it with stars. I mean, you could tell
They
that
really went all out.
that they really liked Nick. If they gave
Yeah,
him the best
they had a
costume,
favorite.
and they gave Christopher, a newcomer, the ghost costume, which looks like a rain poncho with silver tooling on
But
it.
the ghost, I like the ghost costume too, though, because it's just like puffy and it looks like it would be like comfy to wear. Like,
It looks like
you don't want to put
popcorn bag or like a Hershey Kiss.
yeah, because you don't want to put a kid in something that's going to be like uncomfortable or like hard for them to walk around in. So
Mhm.
like, I could definitely see that being like a viable costume.
With regards to their costume, I noticed that when you line them up, it's an interesting showing that there's some feminine, masculine, and a gender neutral costume.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but that's so. I like that. I think that's really cool.
Hmm. So Alicia's kind of looks like it was bought from the store, um, but I like that they added a little bit more because most of the time like the witch costume is just like a black like dress and a hat, but
Yeah.
hers like had like these little cute little like moon patches and star patches. It was really cute.
Yeah.
And then you have Christopher's, which again is a silver poncho with some silver tulle. And I think, I mean, out of the three, that's the most practical. in terms of, oh, it rains. You're already wearing a
Yeah.
poncho. And there you go.
Yep.
But I also, the more I think about it, they kind of represent uh, different ways of making a costume. Like, Nicholas's looks like it was made by somebody, Alicia's looks like it was bought at a store, and Christopher's looks like he made it himself.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that, like, when watching the episode, I was like, do you think, like, the kids that have homemade costumes, do you think, like, in the canon of the show, Tony and Viv helped them, or do you think, like, everybody's parents are crafty in this neighborhood?
I choose to think that not everyone has the same living situations or economical situations. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so I'm pretty sure Tony and Vivian charge a flat rate, and you know,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying. In the canon of the show, um, we can talk a little bit more about the what my personal opinions on the whole canon of the show is in a few.
I've heard your canon opinions, and I love it because it changes everything.
Yeah. So they then help Tony and Vivian make costumes. So I like this too because it shows that you don't need something very glossy to make a costume. If you like look in your closet, you can pull something together and make a costume yourself. So Vivian, they make her a bat with blue ears, a blue-eared bat. So they get like two
That was so
clothespins,
cute.
yeah, and a brown shawl. And
I
and
do really love out of the box, it, like, reminding kids all the time that, like, you can use your imagination to make anything. Like, their meeting room is literally a bunch of boxes. Like,
mhm.
you gotta appreciate it.
Yeah, with the whole fragile and the
Yes.
little square that showed the broken like glass icon. You get what I'm saying?
It's so cute. I love the details.
And then they make Tony a lion, so they give him like work gloves and a yellow vest, and they have a mask already made with the lion's face on it. So
It's so cute, yeah.
it's really cute. And I really like that Tony and Vivian really get into it. The actors, they just like they're not like
Yeah.
there's no, I guess, detachment when
Yeah, and
they.
there's no, like, playing down to kids. Like,
Mhm,
they meet them on their level, but they don't, like, talk to the kids on set or the kids that are watching as if they're dumb. And I like that.
mhm. And so the kids express their excitement to go trick or treating. That they play pretend how to trick or treat. And again, I think for the most part, for like since before we could form memories, like before we could walk, we most people experience what trick or treating is. But I appreciate that they reiterate it for people who probably haven't, and they're like, "Oh, what is trick or treating exactly?" And just like play it out in like how they say, "Oh, Tony, can you come with us?" Even though they're play pretending. Um,
Yeah.
just like the whole details of have an adult ring the doorbell, say trick or treat, and then say thank you.
Yeah.
It's the little details like that, the little details that just it shows that they cared more than like they put a lot of care without like it showing like surface level, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, they really, like, I feel like the creators and everybody involved with Out of the Box, one of the reasons it's so great is because you can tell they really cared about the kids that were watching it and the kids that were participating in it, and you could tell that they really cared about, um, children's education or, like, an emotional education, or, I don't know if that's the right uh, phrasing, but you know what I mean. It's very like validating of, like,
Hmm.
kids' feelings and fears and questions that they have, and I think that's really cool. I think people like that are, like, heroes that we don't talk about, or the people making, like, good children's content.
Hmm.
It's music time.
So the first song is "Everybody Loves to Trick or Treat." It is informative without being preachy. I don't know. It just seems it's hard to say what kind of genre it is, other than Christian VHS budget music.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, that just brought back so many memories.
But
I'm trying.
the song itself, the lyrics were really good, saying like, don't walk in the street. Make sure to grab a flashlight. Make sure to walk with your parents.
Yeah.
So I like that it wasn't in your face, like pointing their finger saying, "Oh, make sure to do this, make sure to do that." They incorporated it into a way that's very like kids will probably sing along to and remember, and
Yeah.
without giving a second thought about it.
Well, I like that it was a safety lesson without like scaring kids, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because like I remember like when we were growing up, it was pretty big to like have the whole like PSAs about like razor blades and fruit, and it was just like that feels like I mean like you should teach kids to be safe and all that, but like some of the PSAs went a little too graphic. I feel like you don't really need to tell kids all of that, and I feel like Out of the Box was also very good at that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing too.
So after that, the kids then tell each other what decoration they love, like the jack-o'-lantern and the spider webs. Tony and Vivian then show them some decoration that they can make at home.
It's arts and crafts time.
So the decoration that the kids make are tissue ghosts, spider webs, and jack-o'-lanterns. Starting with the tissue ghost, it's really easy and it's really cute. It's mostly just string and tissue, like nose tissue, not like toilet tissue.
Yeah. I genuinely want to make the tissue ghosts. I'm like, I want to hang those up around my house this year. They're just cute.
They kind of remind me of those Japanese dolls, the paper dolls. You know, the ones where like people hang them
Yeah.
to make the
Yeah, yeah.
sun come out.
Yeah. I love a craft that doesn't have too many, like, steps involved. And, like,
Mhm.
the little tissue ghosts are literally just like, twist it, tie it, there you go.
Mhm.
Hang it up somewhere.
I think that to make it even easier, people could use like the twist ties from bread.
Mm-hmm.
Just get because it's like 3 pieces of tissue paper. Then you get a fourth one and crumple it into a ball, put it in the center, wrap them all around, and then you can get like a twist tie and then just like twist it because not all the kids will tie it either tight enough or they won't know how to tie it. And I like a craft that the
Yeah.
kids can do for the most part themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, so then they feel creative and they're like, I did it.
Mm-hmm. The only other issue too is decorating it because you have to be really careful with the marker because of how sensitive tissue paper is. Barely even poking it,
Yeah.
sometimes you tear the paper.
What if you just put googly eyes on it? Like, we were
True.
big on googly eyes as a kid.
True. Or just little sticker dots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then next we have the spider web. This was it's in my top 10 arts and crafts that they've done on the show. It's so clever. I did not expect them to, like, be as clever as they were with this craft. So,
Yeah.
you get a plate and you get a black piece of paper, get a plate, draw around it with white crayon. Then you design the spider web, like the little rippled or whatever. And then you get glitter glue, glue over the spider web ripples. Then you get like a pencil or a popsicle stick, and then you kind of like smear it to make it look like they're connecting.
Yeah, that was so cute, and I was like, that's so easy. I've
That is
always, every time I've
so
tried to do
clever.
anything spiderweb, I've always tried to, like, connect it, like, by hand.
That is so
Yeah,
clever.
that was really cute.
And on top of that, it can translate into other like types of crafts. Like you can make a snowflake. You can make flowers. Like
Yeah.
different types of things. So it's definitely up there with one of my favorite crafts. And then the last one was the jack-o'-lantern, which obviously Halloween jack-o'-lantern, hello. And I like that they show that you don't need to carve into them to decorate them. I remember one year when I think it was in first grade, we had a pumpkin decoration contest at school, and one person decided to paint their whole pumpkin black, the whole thing black, and then they added like glitter, eyes, and a smile, and then put pipe cleaners on it, and it was a black spider.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
So they won first overall at school.
That's
Um,
really cute.
but on the other side, being an adult now and then having to help the kids when I used to be an educator, with carving the pumpkins, that's it. It's pumpkins are the most unpredictable vegetable
Yep.
because you can have the tiniest pumpkin and they can be hard as a rock. You can have the biggest pumpkin, hard as a rock.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
and
I
I
think
used
the ones. Oh no, I was just gonna say I think it's cute too when you like because I've seen ones where people like have a bigger pumpkin and a smaller pumpkin and the smaller pumpkin is the head and then you have like a spider. Like
mhm.
it's there's so many cute things you can do without without cutting into them, which is safer and easier for the
Yeah.
adults and children alike.
But speaking of pumpkins, I just don't understand why people don't like cook them after. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
still a vegetable, and it's edible. I mean, people
I
just
think
get
people
the
think that it's like rotten.
people get the
Afterwards, but like
seeds, and then they cook the seeds. But what I mean to say is, like, if you're just gonna paint the pumpkin, just peel the skin off of it, and then like prep it to cook.
yeah, pumpkin risotto is like one of my favorite things to do with pumpkin. It's
Speaking
like
of
really savory.
speaking
It's
of
really
pumpkin
good.
risotto, Hell's Kitchen, that guy who kept
Yeah.
saying, "There's no pumpkin in my pumpkin risotto." He goes over to Chef Ramsay, and Chef Ramsay is not giving him the time of day, and then like he keeps complaining about his pumpkin risotto, and finally Chef Ramsay says, "Sure, would you like it diced or whole, rammed up your ass, or something like that." The decorations though very easy, and most of the stuff you can find at home. And the kids, even being occupied by making decorations, can still barely contain their excitement about Halloween and the trick or treating and all that stuff. I had like really bad social anxiety when I was a kid. Like, even though I was friends with people at school,
Same.
when I saw them outside of school, I would hide because I was like, I don't want to like,
Oh.
private life. I don't want to see you outside of school because then my parents give me like, are like, isn't that your friend in school? I don't like to be put on the spot like that.
I feel that because I was also like a very shy kid and I was very very quiet and so like it's funny because it's like social anxiety. I feel like it gets better with age, but it's like as a child I was very very shy and it's just kind of funny to think back to.
Hmm.
I too would probably hide if I saw somebody that I knew because I was like, oh no.
So trick or treating, just going door to door was like basically ordering a pizza when I was like 12. It was like so stress inducing to me because I'm like, I don't want to do it and this and that. So I
Yeah.
cannot relate to them for the excitement of Halloween.
It's music time.
The second song is called "When Will Halloween Be Here," and another good song, but you can't really describe the genre per se.
Yeah.
But it does teach the kids about patience and waiting for the holiday. If they did a
Yeah,
fourth,
and it also validates their feelings for being impatient, which I thought was cute.
mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing I can relate to that was when 4th of July. I always want to set out the firecrackers early before it got dark. Um, and my parents would like have to hide them or like just keep them out in front of me and have me like just stare at them. I mean, for me, there isn't really much to say about the music. I don't really study music. I mean, I've been a dancer and I played instruments like casually,
Yeah.
but I don't know anything about tones and musicality and outside of
Yeah.
genres and beats and the pace of it. I don't really know anything about like music, so that's like my
Yeah,
area
I'm the
for
same way.
improvement when it comes to talking about episodes of Out of the Box. After they talk about pumpkins and where to find a pumpkin, well, obviously a pumpkin patch, And then Tony poses the question, what if you found a pumpkin and you couldn't pull it out?
It's story time.
So, the story, which was, I think, the longest story they've ever done. 'Cause
Yeah.
that segment took like 10 minutes practically.
Yeah.
Was the little, I titled it The Little Witch and the Pumpkin.
I like
And
that.
it's an interesting, I guess, subliminally theme about inclusivity in terms of gender roles.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, because they tell her that she can't, and then they need her.
hmm so it's about Alicia, the witch, who everyone is getting ready for a Halloween party, and every time there's something to do that she is capable of doing, it gets passed on to someone else, which, since it's just Alicia and Vivian the storyteller is one of the boys. So
Yeah.
she's just left to do nothing. And when everyone else is busy and they need a pumpkin, she's available to do it, but um, Tony's character, the lion, says, "Oh no, you're not strong enough to do it." so, um, you know, so Tony tries to go get the pumpkin, but he can't pull it out. And then, one by one, all the other characters go over except for Alicia because they keep disregarding her ability to be useful. And ultimately, by the end of it all, she helps to get the pumpkin out. And it's just a really, I guess it's an interesting insight into how gender roles were seen back then in the early
Yeah.
2000s, late 90s, of like, oh no, girls are not strong enough, or they're too fragile, or
Yeah.
it's just easier if a guy does it because we don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, kids, I feel like a little kid isn't going to fully understand the context but appreciate it because, like, kids are told that they're too little and too whatever to do anything, and so
Mm-hmm.
they probably all relate to that story regardless of gender. And then you grow up and you're like, oh, that was really smart.
Mm-hmm.
That was also about gender roles.
Yeah,
So that's cool.
but like you said, like you mentioned, just how little kids might not feel valid with their contributions to helping. That
Yeah.
it shows that regardless of how big you are or who you are, there are chances for you to help and shine.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And what's funny about these parties, there's never any food at these parties. Every
Never
time they do a
ever.
story, they never have food at these parties. No
I mean,
music.
somebody probably knew how disgusting food is when it's set out on set for like 12 hours, but yeah, they should
Yeah,
have food. They should have something.
but like pretend food, because I know they've done an episode
Mm-hmm.
in season 2 about someone opening a restaurant, and
A tea party.
they pretend to eat the food that they made for the play. Um, but like whenever they do like Cinderella, or they did this one, or any other episode where they do a play about a party, it's always them doing jigs with no music and no food, and it's like, wow, these are the most uneventful parties. And if my child ever got invited to it and this is what I saw at the party, I would say, okay, we came, now let's go.
Imagine taking your kid to a party with no food.
No music.
Um, everybody is just dancing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. You're just like, okay, bye.
Yeah, I'd be like, hi, bye, thank you for the invitation. Can't stay,
Thank
just
you
came
for
by
the
to say hi.
inclusivity, but I'm good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they finish the story and they're cleaning up, and Vivian steps out for a minute, and the kids ask where she went. And then Vivian comes back and she brings in their sibling, their actual real life siblings, in their
That's
costumes,
cute.
which is so cute. And this isn't the first and last time that they do this. They in the third season they do a Mother's Day and a Father's Day episode where they bring in their actual moms and dads to either they give them their Father's Day gifts or they perform a song for Mother's Day, and it's so cute and it's like
Cute.
it's just I guess it humanizes them because it shows that they're
Yeah.
not just these people in a microcosm of a box fort, that they have
Yeah.
family like little brothers and little sisters, and people can relate to like, oh, they have a little brother or a little sister like I do. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it was always cute because, like, I think Out of the Box did this, but whenever kid shows in that time would always talk about, like, different types of family units. Like, one kid would be like, oh, well, my parents are divorced, or like, oh, I have a single mom or a single dad or whatever. I always liked that because it was like, you know, real life kids come from all different backgrounds. So I like the inclusivity of just like reminding kids that like whatever your family situation is, that's valid.
so Vivian
Well,
takes all the kids back, which is a big old bunch of kids, maybe like 12 practically,
yeah,
10, 12. And then while she's doing that, Tony is just reminding the kids, oh, make sure to go with the grown up and make sure to only go to houses that are decorated, which that piece of advice is a little outdated only because I mean some people just can't afford decorations, but also because
yeah,
people can kind of just disguise their house and kind of have ill intentions even though it's
yeah,
decorated to look friendly and inviting. Like the
yeah. I remember one time, and I don't remember for what. I feel like I can't remember what the situation was, but I remember we were at somebody's like Halloween party, and they did like a trick or treat like around the house. So it was like every like room there was somebody there. So it was like safe in the confines of like the kids are safe in the house, but they're all kind of like in a group together, like going around to like all the different rooms in the house,
yeah,
which I think is really cute and
that's
safer.
pretty
You know?
that's pretty neat. And have like each
Yeah.
room be a different thing. Like one be a crime scene and one be
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's pretty dang interesting what you can do
Yeah.
with just a
Oh yeah.
house and make it like a trick or treat type of setting. A haunted house trick or treat thing, that'd be interesting.
That would be fun.
Um,
That would be really fun.
so yeah, so that was trick or treat. So let's get to our verdict then. The theme of Halloween. Do you feel that the presentation of the theme is still relevant, or do you feel like the way that they presented it is outdated?
I think it's still pretty relevant. I think, I mean, obviously, like the things about like some of the advice about like only go to decorated houses, like that's outdated. But just like in the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of like Halloween and what it is, like yeah, like I would have fun making those decorations that they made today. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's pretty, like that kind of thing. Like the whole like the what's the word? The energy behind it is still very much like what I think kids latch onto in Halloween, like the
Yeah.
costumes and the candy and all that stuff. Even though, of course, we've already established they didn't get candy on the set because they don't have any food
Mm-hmm.
ever. But
But also, it's good to show that you can also give like you don't have to have candy to
yeah,
pass out. If you can make things for people as treats.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
my opinion, I feel that the theme was it's still relevant in certain parts of, I guess, here in the United States. Like, I don't know, out here in California where there are a bajillion laws about things and like people are very cautious. I feel
yeah,
that it's kind of going outdated a bit. Just the whole
yeah.
going to people's houses and trick or treating, like my best friend, they don't even decorate their house. I don't. My mom doesn't decorate her house. So
I've never
like,
decorated my house. Come to think, not the outside anyway. I decorate the inside, but
hmm
like,
um, so I'd say it's barely holds up though.
yeah,
The music then. I feel that the music is outdated
Yeah, I
because
mean, it's not. I think Out of the Box had more memorable music in its entire run, but it did have
hmm
like overall great music, so that's kind of a high bar.
well, since this came out on VHS, it kind of just had that feeling of VHS, like
Yeah, yeah, for
the
real.
quality and the presentation of the music. Um,
Yeah,
just felt like you would pop this in at Sunday school for the children around Halloween
yeah,
time, and they would be sitting
yeah,
crisscross around the carpet watching the TV.
yeah,
The arts and crafts, then, I feel like they hold up. I feel
yeah.
that they were are definitely a thing that people would probably do now. So yeah, so I personally feel that the arts and crafts presented in this episode still hold up. What do you think?
I think the arts and crafts were like really creative. I thought they were really cute. I really like how they always did arts and crafts with things that were really easy, like really accessible, easy to find around the house. So like it never encouraged like having to like buy anything specific. It was just kind of like, oh, tissue paper and a marker and we can make a little ghost. And it was like I always appreciated that about Out of the Box. And yeah, so I thought that was good.
The story of the Little Witch and the Pumpkin, I feel that it is really well presented as a story. I feel
Yeah,
that it would keep a kid's attention. There's plenty of animation from the
yeah,
actors, and I think overall it's a really great message of saying everyone has a chance to shine, and
yeah,
everyone can contribute to the goal.
yeah. And also all the little kids like holding on to Tony's lion tail and like
Mm-hmm.
all of them like pulling together as a team. Very adorable.
Mm-hmm. And the overall acting in this episode, I'd say it's definitely a little hammed up from other
Oh,
episodes. I think it was hammed up because they knew that they probably were gonna release this on VHS, or else probably because it was a holiday episode. Because when they were
yeah.
talking about the pumpkins, we have Christopher like hamming up his expression, like, "But where would you go?"
That
When
was
Alicia
funny.
was saying, "Oh, I would go out and get a pumpkin," and then he's like, "But where would you go?" Obviously, to a pumpkin patch. Um,
Yeah.
and then what else would I say with a little hammy? I'd say like the when they were like acting out their characters, like the cowboy and the witch and the ghost, they were like kind of like really playing into like ooh and like the cackle of the witch and all that stuff. So I mean
Yeah.
it's cute, a little hammy, but
Yeah.
I think overall they got the assignment. But
Yeah.
overall then Trick or Treat still holds up. But the Disney Plus version omits a 10-minute segment that was only present on the Happy Halloween Trick or Treat VHS of Out of the Box.
I've
um,
noticed this trend with Disney Plus a lot. Anything that was like even remotely a special feature of any
mm-hmm,
kind, they leave it out, and I'm like, but why? Because if the one main source that everybody's going to be using is the streaming source, wouldn't you want like the most amount of stuff in it? Like they do this with Beauty and the Beast too. They cut human again, and I've never not been salty about it.
mm. So this 10-minute segment is it's interestingly shot because it's supposed to emulate like the outside on like a porch while they're
Yeah.
doing it. Like they have the wind blowing, and I'm just scratching my head like, is this really filmed outside, or is this like on a set where they make it seem like it's filmed outside?
I'd have to watch it again because I swear, like when I was looking at the set, I was like, okay, that's a set. That's on the soundstage. They're inside. Then when they do the turnaround on Tony and he walks up, I'm like, no, but that's real. Like, did they shoot
Mm-hmm.
Tony walking up outside and then everything else was inside? Like, I'm just like sitting there, like, what did they do?
I don't know because when we were doing the viewing on your channel, I was telling you
Mm.
how they filmed the opening on the weekend in New Jersey at some house. So
Yeah.
maybe they could have like went out to like New Jersey or something, or like upstate New York, and then just like shot at somebody's house doing it. But
They
like,
could have, yeah.
um, what else is interesting about this segment with like the kind of one-upsmanship that they were going back and forth about it? Like, that's
It
great,
felt like Tony and
Vivian.
Viv were having a fight, yeah.
But what about this? Oh, that's
yeah.
great, Tony. Did you check out this? It was like really passive
Yeah.
aggressive. Like, oh,
It
hi,
was
Vivian.
hilarious.
Nice scrapbook. Or should I say crap book?
yeah, pretty much. It was just like Tony and Viv, one of those moments where they kind of have like that like old married couple energy. It was one of those rare moments where they were just like, mine's better than yours.
Yeah. So they made, what did they make again? Oh, they made, clothespin bats. They
Like the
made
clothespin bats.
baby ghosts, which is, if you think about it, it's a little morbid.
Yeah, yeah. Don't think about it for too long, but they were cute to look at.
We could have called them puffball ghosts instead of baby ghosts.
Marshmallow ghosts,
They made a little witch with a cookie cutter witch. There we go, cookie cutter witch.
yeah.
What they also made a pumpkin poster. And then
Yeah.
what was the? Did they make anything else?
I feel like there was something else. I'm trying to think. I feel like they made a little a spider on a web. Did they? Like
Oh, that's
like,
right. They made a spider.
Yeah.
They made a spider, a pipe cleaner spider.
Yeah. Because we talked about the dangers of pipe cleaners.
Yes, the dangers of pipe cleaner. I think it's so fun. I think when people listen, they think I'm over exaggerating when I say like the dangers of things. But no, I've worked with kids for 5 years, and if there's a way for kids to hurt themselves, they will find that way to hurt themselves. And you're like, how?
I definitely cut myself on pipe cleaners like as a kid doing arts and crafts because like the little thing in the middle is sharper than you expect it to be.
Mm-hmm. And then they take all the crafts and then they like put them all on this cute little Halloween poster. And then they go out for, to get Halloween candy. Oh, I'll go with you, Vivian. They're going on a little date. Their characters went out on a little date. But the lore, getting to the juicy part now, because I said it plenty of times, and it's my longest running hypothesis, conspiracy theory.
Coming soon on video and DVD.
If you think about it, out of the box, every season, they always get a new batch of kids. And some people would just be like, oh, their parents probably, like, they moved away, or they got too old for it, or something like that. No. If we're talking about the lore, get ready for a ride, people. Here's my hypothesis and take on the whole situation. How can you make a box fort that is well furnished? Tony and Vivian are hundreds of year old sorcerers who, just like the Sandersons, like how the Sanderson sisters take the life essence of young children to stay young, they do the same thing with the neighborhood children that live around the neighborhood. How do they do that? they Alicia and Nick, the only two children on the show to be part of all 3 seasons of Out of the Box, go out into the neighborhood and see which of the children have the magical ability to manifest what's in their imagination.
They're the henchmen.
Yes, they are the henchmen. They made a plea bargain with Tony and Vivian to spare their lives. But in return, they have to go out and find more children and bring them to Tony and Vivian. And so, they trick them into, having fun and being trusting, and by, gaining the trust of the parents. And by the end of the summer or something, they probably trap them in the picture frames, because one of the lyrics in the intro, that pictures come alive because they jumped into pictures.
Oh God.
So they probably trap them in the pictures, and then they burn those picture frames, in some
Oh my
ritualistic
God.
way to take their life lessons. And that's how
I
they
feel
stay
like-
young and all powerful.
I love it. I feel like if we ever showed R.L. Stein out of the box, he would come away like writing some kind of short story akin to something like this.
Yeah,
You know,
instead of
it's like-
Tony and Vivian, it'll be Jimmy and Evelyn.
Yeah, it'll be like One Day at Horrorland, where it's just like they go in but they never come out.
Yes.
I did always wonder that. Like, my parents would never have let me like hang out with like random neighbors every afternoon, all afternoon after school.
They what's the word? Enchanted them. They
Yeah.
charmed them into trusting them, and then once they sacrifice their children, they cast a spell on the parents to make it seem like they never had a child.
I love this idea.
I just think that it adds a really interesting little element to the whole universe of Out of the Box. Because I mean, when I was young, I thought Tony and Vivian were like kind of dating.
I always headcanon that they were together. Still to this day, I'm like, their characters, like, I know in real life they're married to other people, their characters are married, though.
My listeners should go over, and I'll put a link in the description and on the tab thingy of Avery Talk About Stuff.
Yep. I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for letting me be here. It's just, I love... No one ever talks... We talked about this when you were on my channel. We don't talk about Out of the Box enough. Like, I love that you're talking about Out of the Box, and I love that I got to talk about it with you, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you making time, and I can't wait for your video to come out. Is there any last minute thoughts, anything that you'd like to plug, any upcoming projects?
No, you can follow me at the link below. I cover nostalgic, obscure, otherwise strange content. I'm really just so happy to have been here. I've just had so much fun.
Make sure to leave a comment if you like what you hear. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Spotify at the Box Cutter Podcast at gmail.com. Send all feedback and suggestions to the Box Cutter Podcast at gmail.com because it takes a village to raise something beautiful. In the words of Tony and Vivian, so long, farewell, until we meet again.
Everyone, we're going out to have some fun. It happens each and every Halloween. We all dress up any way we like.
We're all gonna have a real good time.
'Cause everybody loves to trick or treat. Yes, everybody loves. Everybody loves to trick or treat. Trick or treat. Trick or treating is my favorite part of Halloween. Yeah.